Hi, my name is Christina, and I'm part of the Sustain Music Project. Today, we are so excited to perform a concert that we made especially for you kids. Now, before we begin, let me introduce the rest of the musicians.
Hi, my name is Selina, and I play the oboe.
Hello, my name is Angelique, and I play the clarinet.
Hi, my name is Jill, and I play the French horn.
Hi, my name's Steven, and I play the bassoon.
As I said before, I'm Christina, and I play the flute. Now, each of our instruments are in the woodwind family. Well, except for the French horn, which is in the brass family, but all of us use air to blow across or into our instruments to produce the sound. Each instrument has its own unique sound, or timbre, but when we play together, the timbres combine to make one beautiful piece of music. Listen as we play our first piece. It's called UMOJA, which means unity, and it's by composer Valerie Coleman. See if you can hear the individual sounds of each instrument and how we work together to make the music. What all five of us love most about music is how it tells a story. Think about your favorite movie and how the music gives you a clue as to what's happening in the scene, whether it's Luke Skywalker brilliantly fighting off Darth Vader, or it's creepy sounds that let you know that a monster is under the bed, or it's beautiful melody as Anna and Elsa fling open the doors to their castle. We've chosen 4 pieces of music to play for you today. UMOJA by composer Valerie Coleman, which you already heard. Back in Time and in Heaven by composer Miguel del Aguila. The Source by Ballard. And For Lana by composer Amanda Harburg. They've written such creative music for our instruments, so we wrote a story about a little lost puppy that goes along with the music. I have 3 things I want you to listen for. First, what does the family name their puppy? Secondly, how does the puppy help their family? And third, what do the kids learn by the end of the story? Okay, we're ready to play. So use your eyes, your ears, and your imaginations as you listen. The little brown and white puppy sat alone on the grass at the edge of the neighborhood park. His head was lowered to the ground, His sad, dark eyes were searching in the twilight for the family that seemed to have forgotten him. He thought that it might be his fault that he was forgotten and alone. He had been so happy to be outside that he had run and played all around the park, and now he couldn't find them. The sound of footsteps hit the ground behind the puppy, and he lifted his head and turned towards the sound. A woman with a friendly smile and sparkling blue eyes approached him carefully. When she saw his tail begin to wag, she knelt beside him and began to rub behind his ear. She scanned the empty park behind her. "Hey there, little pup. Are you lost? We can do something about that," she said softly. She picked him up, took him to her car, and drove to a nearby animal shelter. The little puppy, sitting comfortably in the back seat of the woman's car, realized that they had stopped moving. He jumped to put his paws on the window, and he saw a large red brick building. The kind woman opened the car door, lifted him into her arms, and carried him inside the building. The woman held and comforted the puppy while she talked with the tall man. Then she kissed the top of his head and handed him over to the man. The man smiled at the little puppy and turned to put him into a box with open sides. The puppy watched the woman walk away with a forlorn expression on his face. He now felt more alone and lost than before. Behind the building was a small fenced yard. The little puppy was sometimes taken out of his crate to walk around the yard. He tried to make friends with the other dogs, but he soon discovered they had no interest in playing with him. They were either too old and wanted to sleep, or too sad to find the energy to play. The little puppy refused to give in to his loneliness, and he would run and jump all by himself to keep his spirits up. A few weeks later, a man with sad eyes just like the little puppy's walked into the animal shelter. The puppy was curious what the man was doing, so he stood up to be a better view, and his movement caught the man's attention. The man's eyes lit up, and a genuine smile appeared across his face. "I'll take him. He seems like just the right dog for us," exclaimed the man. The man was given the little puppy to hold, and the puppy was so happy to feel wanted that he started giving the man little puppy kisses. The man laughed. "I heard you were brought here after you were found alone in the park. I think I'll name you Rescue. That's a perfect name for you. We all need a little rescuing these days. Come on, Rescue, let's get you out of here and home to your new family. Lily and Max will love having you around." Rescue didn't want to be lost again, so when the man put a leash on him, he stayed right by his side. Then a few papers were signed, and Rescue proudly walked out of the animal shelter by the side of his new owner. Rescue and the man walked to a dark green pickup truck parked on the side street next to the shelter. The man opened the back door of the truck. "Okay, little buddy, into the back seat with you." Rescue was eager to see the places they passed on the way to his new home, but he couldn't see very much from the back seat, so he let the motion of the truck lull him into a peaceful sleep. Lily and Max's father looked into the truck's rearview mirror to see Rescue, asleep with his paws over his eyes. He chuckled at the thought of how excited his children would be to see the little puppy. He knew that he had done the best thing for his family and for Rescue by adopting the little puppy from the shelter. Rescue awakened with a start, for the truck had stopped. Had Rescue arrived at his new home? The next thing the puppy knew, the man was lifting him out of his carrier. Rescue saw a white two-story house with green shutters at the windows. There was a small front yard with colorful flowers along the sidewalk leading to the door. The front door suddenly opened, and two children stepped onto the small porch. Their eyes were big and round with surprise. "Dad, is this puppy ours?" tentatively asked the girl. "He sure is," answered her father. "This is Rescue." The puppy was happy to see the smiling children, but he wasn't sure exactly what to do. He looked up at the man and quietly barked. "It's okay, Rescue. Lily and Max are part of your family now." "Can we pet him, Dad?" asked Max. "Sure, but take it slow and let Rescue get to know you." The minute Max held out his hand for Rescue to sniff, Rescue felt like he belonged. It didn't take long for Lily, Max, and Rescue to realize they were meant to be together. Max liked to shoot basketballs in the backyard with his friends or his dad, and Rescue would watch and run to nudge the ball back where it would roll onto the grass. When the family went to the park, Max and Lily would take turns throwing a small ball to Rescue that he would fetch and bring back to them. Lily enjoyed drawing and painting, and Rescue would sometimes stay near her drawing table and play with his little toys while she worked. One day, Rescue noticed that their dad came in from work wearing a covering over his mouth and nose, and he slowly backed away from him. "Don't worry, Rescue," said Dad, taking off the covering. "It's still me. You're going to see people wearing these masks for a while." He held out his hand for Rescue to sniff and to know it was him. Dad was right. Rescue would bring in the morning newspaper and see pictures of people wearing masks, and he noticed people walking with the masks on their faces. Family friends weren't visiting their house anymore. Rescue didn't understand why, but he was sure there was something unusual going on. Rescue heard Lily and Max and their parents say words he had never heard before. Pandemic, virtual school, COVID-19. He guessed that these were problems for the family and their friends that caused things to be so different. Lily and Max were staying home all the time, and they sat at their computers listening and talking to people whose voices were coming from the screens. Being the energetic dog he was, Rescue didn't understand why Lily and Max couldn't play with him as much as they used to play together. Their mom would keep him out of the rooms they were in, and when Lily and Max came out after listening to the voices, they didn't look very happy, and they didn't feel like playing with Rescue. It seemed to Rescue that everyone in the family wasn't their usual selves, and that worried him. Lily and Max had to wear their masks when taking Rescue out for his walks. One day, they walked to the park, and Rescue was excited to see some friends walking towards them. He was happy for Lily and Max to be with their friends again. But all Lily and Max did was wave to their friends and cross the street. Max was angry. "I want this COVID to end. We can't even be at the playground the same time they are." "Max, our friends understand. If we didn't walk away, they would have to," consoled Lily. COVID word again, thought Rescue. He didn't like what COVID was doing to his family. Rescue was lying in his bed in the family room. Lily and Max were talking with their mom and dad about what had happened on the walk to the park. Max was red-faced and frustrated, and Lily was almost crying as she asked her questions. When will we be able to be with our friends again? When can we go back to school and sit in our classrooms? Are we going to be separated from everyone forever? Rescue didn't want his family to be angry, so he left his bed to sit next to Max, sitting on the floor with his arms crossed and silent. Max reached out to pet Rescue. Their dad spoke. "We don't have those answers right now. People all over this country and the world are in the same position we're going through. COVID is really dangerous. Many are sick and suffering, and we have to wait this out." "And Lily," began her mom, "you're not separated from everyone. We are a family. We're in this together. You, Max, Dad, me, and Rescue." Rescue lifted his head at the mention of his name. Lily and Max slowly walked upstairs to Lily's bedroom. They hadn't received the answers they were hoping for, and they felt sad and confused. Later that week, Lily and Max sat in the family room and talked about what was upsetting them with their mom. Rescue was laying in between them. "Mom, I can't focus during Zoom classes," complained Max. Lily chimed in, frustrated. "No one in my class even bothers to talk anymore. I feel so bad for my teacher, but it's not fair that I'm the only one she ever calls on anymore." "We're missing out on so much, Mom," she continued. "I miss my friends. I never see them anymore. Even my art classes are canceled. And I want to know why one or two of my friends can't come over to shoot some hoops if we're outside and wearing masks. Between trying to focus on Zoom and doing all of that extra work, I haven't played in weeks. Not that I even want to by myself," complained Max. Although their mom had no answers, the kids knew that she was listening as they expressed their feelings. Rescue was listening too. He recognized from the tone of their voices that Lily and Max felt like he did when he was at the animal shelter, alone with no friends to share time with, and wondering what would happen next. Rescue wanted to help them, and he began to think of ways he might be able to get them let out their feelings. Afterwards, Lily went upstairs and laid on her bed, and Max went out the back door and sat on the deck steps. Rescue first bounded up the stairs to Lily's room and stood, barking, at her art table. He hadn't seen Lily work on any art projects for a while. "What is it, Rescue?" asked Lily as she lifted her head. Rescue pulled a blank piece of drawing paper from the ledge under the table and dropped it at her bedside. "You want me to draw you a picture?" "Well, I guess I could try," said Lily. Lily sat down at the table and used her thick markers to make long streaks of angry color all over the paper. When she finished, she realized how good it felt to release her anger and frustration. Rescue then went downstairs to find Max still sitting on the steps in the backyard with his head in his hands. Rescue looked around and saw the basketball at the end of the yard. He ran to it and rolled it towards Max. He gave one last nudge of the ball with his nose, and the ball rolled to Max's feet. "Come on, Rescue. You know this ball is too big to fetch." Rescue rolled the ball back to Max and trotted to stand under the basketball hoop. Max looked up and considered Rescue's actions. "So you want me to shoot the ball through the hoop? And then what? Just play by myself?" Rescue barked a short, confirming bark. Max picked up the basketball and tossed it a few times in the air. He then started fiercely dribbling the ball this way and that until he jumped to make his shot. Max repeated the movement and made his shot once again. Rescue barked approval. Over the next few months, Lily worked on her art regularly, coming up with striking pieces that reflected her emotions and her daily life living through the pandemic. Max practiced each day on improving his basketball moves and rhythm. He redirected his negative feelings about virtual learning and missing his friends into the energy it took to be a good player. And Rescue was proud of himself for being helpful to the family he loved. One day, almost 1 year into the pandemic, Mom and Dad surprised Lily and Max with the news that classes would soon be returning to in-person instruction. Lily and Max shrieked with joy. Their yelling startled Rescue, for he hadn't heard them so happy in a long time. "Hold on to that excitement while we tell you the conditions," laughed their dad. His words abruptly stopped the shrieking. "What conditions?" questioned Max. "School is school." "Well, for one thing, you're not going to go every day, and neither will it be all day long. You'll be going 3 days a week," replied their mom. "And there's only going to be 15 students at a time, wearing masks and staying socially distanced." Lily and Max looked at one another for a moment and then pumped their fists into the air. "We can live with that," they agreed. Lily and Max insisted that Rescue accompany them for the first day back to the new normal of school. Rescue felt special that he was going along with them. It was his first time walking to school with anyone, and he sensed that Lily and Max felt this was just like the first time for them as well. As Lily and Max got to the entrance of their school, they looked to their mom for encouragement to face this different kind of school day. She smiled and waved and released Rescue from his leash so he could run to Lily and Max. They both laughed and dropped to their knees to hug him. Rescue watched them go through the doors, cocking his head to let them know that he would be thinking of them. As Lily and Max entered their classroom, they were thrilled to see the familiar faces of their friends, what they could see behind the masks they all wore. Lily discovered one of her friends, Hannah, had spent her time during the pandemic designing and sewing clothes for her dolls. Lily showed Hannah some pictures of her artwork that she had hung on her bedroom walls. Max spied his good friend Ben sitting in the corner with another one of their friends. He joined them, and they realized that each of them had spent most of their time practicing basketball. They all said they missed coming over to Max's place to shoot hoops. All three agreed to meet up later that week at Max's house, just like they had been doing before. Rescue was back on his leash, but he was standing on his hind legs watching Lily and Max through the classroom window. He knew they wouldn't look for him because they were so busy with their friends, and he was joyful for that. Rescue would miss them, but he knew they'd come home from school happy and ready to play. During the first week of attending in-person school, Lily and Max learned more about the pandemic and why it was so important to be separated from their friends and family. They came to understand that people chose to distance themselves for the health and safety of those they cared about. Lily and Max were thankful for their puppy who had stayed by their side during the pandemic. Okay, are you ready for the quiz? Here we go. First of all, what did the family name their puppy? Did you remember that it was Rescue? Secondly, how did the puppy help the kids? Well, what I heard was that he reminded them to do art and play basketball every day. He knew that even though they were feeling sad and alone, doing things that they loved would help them get through the tough stuff. And last one, what did the kids learn by the end of the story? Well, here's what I think. I think they learned that although staying away from others was really hard and really sad, they quarantined because they cared about others and they didn't want to get other people sick, just like all of you did. Well, you heard our story today, and music was an important part of it. But what's really cool is that each of you have your own stories to tell. Whether it's through sports, art, dance, being kind to others, being great in school, there are so many possibilities. We're excited to see what your story is. Well, from all of us at the Sustained Music Project, thanks so much for listening. We hope you come hear us again.